screen. Glow stick and F5. Scrambled Eggs Super. Okay, anytime.
I don't like to brag and I don't like to boast, said Peter T. Hooper. But speaking of toast, and speaking of kitchens and ketchup and cake, and kettles and stoves and the stoves people bake, well, I don't like to brag, but I'm telling you, Liz, that speaking of cooks, and I'm the best that there is. Why, only last Tuesday, when mother was out, I really cooked something worth talking about. You see, I was sitting here, resting my legs, and I happened to pick up a couple of eggs, and I sort of got thinking, it's sort of a shame that scrambled eggs always taste always the same. And that's because ever since goodness knows when, they've always been made from the eggs of a hen. Just a plain common hen. What a dumb thing to use with all of the other fine eggs you could choose. And so I decided that, just for a change, I'd scramble a new kind of egg on the range, some fine fancy eggs that no other cook cooks, like the eggs of a rubber-necked salamakooks. Or salamakooks say they should be good. So I went out and found some as quick as I could, and while I was lugging them back to the house, I happened to notice a teasel-topped goose and in a tree down the street, and I knew from her looks that her egg and the egg of the salama cooks ought to mix mightily well, ought to taste simply super when crammed together by Peter T. Hooper. So I took those eggs home and I freezed them up, and I added some sugar, 2 thirds of a cup, and a small pinch of pepper, and also a pound of horseradish sauce that was sitting around, and also some nuts that I tasted the stuff, and it tasted quite fine, but not quite fine enough. To make the best scramble that's ever been made, a cook has to cook the best eggs ever laid. So I drove to the country, quite rather far out, and I studied the birds that were flying about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
I looked with great care at a mop noodle pinch. I looked at a big bald-headed cringe, and also I looked at a shade roosting quail, who was roosting right under a lasso of back's tail. I looked at a spritz and a funnel-winged jay, but I just didn't stop. I kept right on my way, 'cause they didn't have eggs, they weren't laying that day. And suddenly, boy, up that hill, a short space, birds, they were laying all over the place. Great happy gay families with uncles and cousins, all laying fine, strictly fresh eggs by the dozens. Why, I'd have a scrambled more super than super, scrambled eggs super de duper de booper, special deluxe la Peter T. Hooper. I picked out the eggs in the most careful way. I only picked those that are new or grade A. I only took eggs from the best from the very best bowls. So I didn't take eggs from the $3 O's, because I knew that the eggs from those bellows who treated taste sort of like dust from inside a best feeder. I went for the kind that were mellow and sweet, and the world's sweetest eggs are the eggs of the queen, which is due to those very sweet throat which they eat, and those throat where they are sweet because they only eat works, and works after all are the world's sweetest frogs, and the reason they are sweet is whenever they lunch, it always the world's sweetest beast that they munch, and the reasons no bee can be sweeter than this is only it blossoms of beechnut trees, and these beechnut blossoms are sweeter than sweet, and that's why I left several eggs from the squid, but I passed up the eggs of a bird called a strudel, put sort of a soak, but with pearl like a poodle. For they say that the eggs of this kind of a soak are gooey like glue and they stick to your fork, and the yolks of these eggs I am told taste like fleas, while the whites taste like very old bicycle grease.
Go ahead.
The places I hiked to, the roads that I rambled to find the best eggs that have ever been scrambled. I hunted new birds along wild tangled trails, through gullies and gorges, down dingles and dales. I wriggled my way and I crawled at a creep, through a forest of ferns that was 40 miles deep, and I mushed through the brush till I found a fine quiggle, whose eggs are as big as a pinhead, no bigger. Then I went for the eggs of a long-legged quawn. Now this quawn, well, she's built just a little bit wrong. All her legs are so terribly, terribly long that she has to lay eggs 20 feet in the air, and they drop with a plop to the ground from up there. So unless you can catch 'em before the eggs crash, you haven't got eggs, you've got long-legged hash. Eggs, I'd collected 302, but I still needed more, and I suddenly knew that the job was too big for one fellow to do. So I telegraphed north to some friends near Fazol, which is 10 miles or so just beyond the North Pole, and they all of them jumped in their catamassite, which is sort of a boat made of sea leopard hide, which they sailed out to sea to go looking for rice, which is sort of a bird which lay eggs on the ice, which they grabbed with a tool which is known as a squitch, 'cause those eggs are too cold to be touched without which. And while they were sending those eggs, I got word of a bird that does something that's almost unheard of. It's hard to believe, but this bird called the pelf lays eggs that are 3 times as big as herself. How that pelf ever learned such a difficult trick, I never found out, but I found that egg quick, and I managed to get it down out of the nest and home to the kitchen along with the rest. But I didn't stop then, 'cause I knew of some dogs by the name of the single file Zamzian dogs.
Yep.
uh, whose tour signifies through the mountains of jumps quite oddly enough with their eggs on their dumbbells and some fellows in jump who I happened to know just happened to capture 1,000 or so, and they wrapped up their eggs and they mailed them by air, marked special delivery handle with care. I needed more helpers and so for assistance. I called up a fellow named Ali long distance, and Ali, as soon as he hopped the phone, picked up a small basket and started along to climb the steep cracks and the jags of Mr. Strook to fetch me the eggs of a Strook cuckoo. Now these Mr. Strook cuckoos are rather small girls, but these Mr. Strook cuckoos have lots of big parts. They dived from the skids with wild cackling shrieks, and they jabbed at his legs, and they stabbed at his cheeks with their hammering beaks. But Ali, brave Ali, he fought his way through, and he sent me that eggs as I knew he would do. For my scrambled eggs, super special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper. In the meanwhile, of course, I was keeping real busy collecting the eggs of a three-eyed TG. They are quite hard to reach, so I rode to the top of Ham Ika Shinim, Ika Shinem, Ika Shinop. Then I found a great flock of southwest facing cranes, and I guess have got something that's wrong with their brains. For this kind of a crane, when she's guiding her nest, we'll always stand facing precisely southwest, so to get at those eggs wasn't hard in the wrist. I came from behind, from precise northeast.
and I captured the eggs of a prickly cactus, who raised them up high in a prickly cactus, and then I went for some jeeps. They are exactly like drops, but the jeeps live on creeps, and the drops live on bluffs. And seeing how bluffs are exactly like creeps, it might hard telling the drops from the jeeps, but I know that the eggs that I got from the bluffs, if it wasn't a jeeps from the creeps, was a drops.
Very nice. Nice work. Last one.
Now I needed the eggs of a moth watching sneak, who's a bird who's so big she scares people to death. And this awful big bird, well, the reason they name her the moth watching sneak is 'cause that's how they tame her. She likes watching moth, sort of quiet her mind, and while she is watching, you sneak up behind and you yank out her egg. So I got one, of course, with the help of some friends and a very fast horse. If you want to get eggs, you can't buy at a store. You have to do something never thought of before. Why, to get at the egg of one very small dwarf, we had to pray all of one mountain top off. Then I ha- then I heard of some birds who lays eggs, if you please, that takes like the air in the holes of Swiss cheese, and they live in big Zanzibar trees. So I ordered a tree full. The job was imminent, but I needed those eggs, and said, hang the expense. I still needed one more, and I saved it for last, the egg of the frightful, bombastic August. And that bird is so mean, and that bird is so fast, that I heard to escape on a Zilliqa jet, a fleet-foot beast who can run like a deer, but looks sort of different. You steer him by ear. All thought with the searching, all thought with the looking. I had all I needed, and now for the cooking. I rushes to the kitchen, the place where I'd stacked them. I roll up my sleeves. I unpacked them and cracked them and chucked it in 99 pans. Then I mixed in some beans. I used 55 cans. Then I mixed in some ginger, 9 prunes, and 3 figs, and parsley, white parsley, just 22 sprigs. Then I added 6 cinnamon sticks and a clove, and my scramble was ready to go on a stove. And you know how they taste? They taste just like, well, they taste exactly just like scrambled egg super de duper de booper special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper.
Right. Good job, guys. Good job. Very nice.